Okay, so hello again here in Banja Luka. I wish you like warm welcome, and I want to thank you for a great talk in our conference, and it was really nice. And I want to ask you, what do you think? How did you felt it? You know, how was the experience for you to give a talk? How was crowd, audience, and how was question? It was good interaction, or can you say something about your experience in our conference?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure being here. And for me, I evaluate talks by the questions I'm being asked at the end. And the questions were amazing. So based on that, I can say that the audience was amazing. They were engaged and their questions were spot on. Exactly the same questions I wanted them to ask, to be honest. So yeah, it was a great experience. I really enjoyed it.
And I wanted to ask you some stuff about your book. And what I wanted to know if you can share some, I don't know, some stories about writing experience itself. How was it? It was like hard. And how did you get to idea to write in this point in time this book?
Yeah, so first of all, this book was supposed to be published 3 years ago, but I had to prove that I am a real software engineer. So I missed the deadlines by 3 years. Now, I can honestly say that this book is the hardest project I have ever worked on. It took 5 years to write, but I think it took 20 years out of my life, at least. And I was so excited about this idea 5 years ago, and back then I did a talk at DDD Europe where I presented these ideas, and Rebecca Wiersbrock told me, you have to write a book about it. So who am I to argue with Rebecca Wiersbrock? Luckily for me, about a month, maybe even less, maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, Van Werner reached out to me and told me about his project, his signature series he was about to do. So the stars aligned just right for this book to happen. So I committed to writing it, and yeah, as I said, at least 20 years went away out of my life.
I'm sorry to hear that and sorry about that, but I am glad that you actually did wrote it, because I can tell you, I had problems that took 20 years of my life. And I was like fighting complexity, and then I realized complexity, I don't know, am I right or not, but like it's indestructible, like energy. And then I realized I cannot distract this like complexity, I can just move it around. And then I noticed your book, and then I realized, okay, I don't need to distract it, I just need to balance it, like the title says. And then I started to read it, and it was like better and better. Then I know that it's like hard even in presentation, but can you tell us now, how can we tame the beast of complexity? Like just in like few words or something like that. What's the main idea?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to thank you for being the brave heart, that had the courage to read the rough cuts of the book. I know what that draft looked like, and thank you for going through that. Now about complexity, well, we have two types of complexity. The essential complexity that we are introducing into the code base by making design decisions that are not effective. That's something that we can refactor. For example, if you notice that you are sharing way more knowledge than you are required by your business domain, then you can refactor your solution to minimize, to optimize that shared knowledge. And that way you can eliminate that accidental complexity. But in cases in which you're dealing with the complexity of the business domain, which is the essential complexity, you have nothing to do with it. You have to implement a system that the business needs. If you will ignore that complexity, then the users are not going to use it, because, come on, why do they need that to help them with that complexity in their life, in their jobs, etc. So my model in the book is to do it by balancing the dimensions of integration strength which reflects the knowledge that is shared and the distance between components. Now, that's only half of the picture. The second half is taking a page from how nature works to address complexity, and that's by introducing a fractal dimension. So, if you find yourself in a situation in which you have complexity and the only thing you can do is to just move it to another level of abstraction, then it's a good time to introduce a new level of abstraction or indirection. And in the book, there is a chapter about that fractal geometry that shows how nature uses that approach. So we can take a page from nature because,
Yeah, that was basically my next question, but you already answered it about fractal nature of the software and how nature is a fractal itself. And there was a clue, I suppose, for solution for complexity. Like just like you said, take the page from the nature and how nature solved it in fractal. Nature itself is a fractal, and then they repeat the solution, and you basically find a way, I don't know, to steal that ideas from the nature. That was my next question, but you already answered. So I also wanted to ask you, you referred to one book, old book.
Yes.
Yeah, and my question is, what do you think? You have a lot of experience, years of experience, and can you maybe give a comment? Did we as a software industry actually make some steps forward, or are we still fighting the same problems again and again from we are a young industry, but I have a feeling that we are still struggling with the same problem. And now I think, are we making steps forward as an industry? Yeah, that's the question, I think.
Yeah, that's a great question and a hard one, because on the one hand, if you take that book, Structured Design from '76, and you look at the problems that were discussed back then, they're quite similar to what we are struggling with today. However, I would say that the systems that we're building today are way more complex than what they were doing back then. So we're dealing with problems that are way more complicated. We have way more variables to deal with. So we can only answer that question if we, let's say, take a system from '70s, take those requirements and implement them today, and then compare in where we're going to find ourselves in. With those problems, or we already know how to solve them. Or vice versa. If we go back in time and ask them to implement a distributed system that runs on cloud, whatever, and has to change every other day. Without having that common ground, it's really hard to answer that question, because yeah, it sounds like we're struggling with the same issues, but I don't think it's an honest evaluation of our work.
Yeah, maybe we have same problems but different requirements. Maybe that's the thing. And you said just a moment ago, and I noticed that you're saying that a lot, that you are not going to write another book anymore. And so I really hope that it's not the case. And I think maybe that this should be the last book on the subject, but not your last book. Why do you say that? Why the last book? It was like so hard. Yeah.
So I remember when I was working on the Monkey book on learning domain-driven design, Chris Richardson told me that you will have PTSD, writing-induced PTSD, that you will have to recover from before you start thinking about your next book. Now, I did that mistake of working on another book before I had a chance to recover. So now I have two PTSDs. It will take a while to recover from it. Maybe I will, but I don't think so.
I hope so, that you will recover and write another book again. So thank you again for visiting us and give us a talk, and I hope that we will meet again.
Thank you so much. I really hope that we'll meet again, and that it will happen as soon as possible. Really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Until next opportunity.